Our text today is from chapter 6 of the book of Ezra. They celebrated the festival with joy because God fills them with joy by changing the attitude of the king and by helping them in the work of building the house of God. At this point in the narrative, a chapter of history comes to a close. A generation walks off the stage, as it were, and disappears into the shadows of antiquity. They were an obscure people, the forgotten people of the Bible, and even the most serious Bible student could scarcely number one or two of their leaders' names. It would be easy to skip over this section. Many preachers do. But there's a good reason why you shouldn't do it. They were not only living a long time ago and far away, they were nobodies in their own day. A mere remnant of a once proud nation. Their lives, a mere footnote in the history book. Their land, a mere county in a province of the far-flung Persian Empire. But they had something you don't see a lot today. They had a deep and abiding sense of joy. We got a lot of entertainment and pleasure and thrills and excitement, and we've got a lot of anxiety and alienation and depression, but you don't really see joyful people a whole lot. When the end came for these folks, there was none of the sorrowful regret and remorse that we're so used to today. The curtain comes down on a scene of festive joy. The story is quickly told, and it's familiar to some of you. Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, made a decree that all the deported people in his realm could return again to their homeland. A handful of Hebrews accepted the challenge, made the long and arduous journey back to Palestine, and they began to rebuild the ruined temple on the site where Solomon's temple once stood. But then trouble came. Outsiders harassed them and threatened them. And worst of all, they filed charges against them at the court of the Persian governor, claiming that they were not building a temple but a fortress, fomenting rebellion instead of fostering religion. So they finally quit, threw down their hammers and their trowels, walked off the job, and for 16 years, the construction site stood abandoned. Well, then two prophets came on the scene and encouraged the people with those old promises of God. And they rallied, they responded, went back to work, and then bam! The wind was knocked out of their sails again. Suddenly, Tatanai, governor of the province west of the Euphrates River, showed up on the scene with a military escort who authorized you to rebuild this temple. Hey, what are the names of the men who are working on this project? Well, they told them as best they could, but the governor didn't know who to believe, the Hebrews or their accusers. Wisely, he did nothing and sent a letter back to the capital asking that a search be made in the royal archives to find out if these people really had a charter from Cyrus to rebuild the temple. Well, now the sword's hanging over their heads. The distances were very great. The overland mail service was slow. Cyrus, long dead and gone. How could they even find the records in a bureaucratic maze of big government. And besides, they weren't where they thought they would be in Babylon. They were at Ecbatana, the summer palace of the Persian king. And they knew they were just small potatoes, that their existence didn't mean a thing to the empire at large. Then word came back from Darius the king. Yes, Cyrus the Great did permit these people to rebuild. They're to build this temple with stone and timber and put the sacred vessels back into it. Every detail of their sacrifices is to be observed, and all expenses will be paid out of the treasury west of the Euphrates. Oh yeah, and another thing. Don't interfere with them. Stay away. Leave them alone. Anybody who messes with the building of the house of God will have a timber torn out of his own house, and he will be impaled on it, and his own residence will be turned into a public toilet. I, Darius, the king, have decreed it. Wow, they couldn't believe it. They went back to work, and in no time at all, they dedicated their temple. And they followed it up in the next month with a Passover celebration, commemorating the exodus of their fathers out of Egypt long ago. On that never-to-be-forgotten night, when their lives were spared by the blood of the Lamb, and their lives of slavery in Goshen were ended, and they began a new life as the people of God. And why not? These people too had experienced an exodus and the beginning of a new life. And 3 times at the close of the chapter, we are told that they celebrated with joy, great joy. And the source of their joy was God. God gave them the strength, and God gave them success. Now you can say that their temple wasn't much to look at compared to the golden temple of Solomon, and it certainly did not compare to the Egyptian temples of Thebes and Karnak, or the magnificent shrines of the Persians all over the landscape. But it was their temple. And when they had the chance, this anonymous little group of nobodies forged a link in the chain that led directly to Christ, who was born in Bethlehem and dedicated in the temple, their temple of God at Jerusalem. Now, there are 2 ways of looking at life, aren't there? There's enough sadness in every life that you can dwell upon it, but there's enough gladness in every life that you can find that and fix upon it, like having the flu. You can make it the big issue of your life, or you can remember all the good meals that you ate with a good appetite, and the good night's sleep you had after a hard day's work, sinking down in peace at night in a good kind of tiredness. These people chose to look upon the good things that God had done for them, and that's why they rejoiced. Yes. They knew bitter disappointments and blinding sorrows, days of defeat and seasons of discouragement. That was part of it too. But they learned something in adversity about God and about themselves that they could not have learned anywhere else. And they wouldn't have missed it for the world. They found out that God was ruling and overruling. All the while, He did not seem to be ruling at all. That they made the safe journey, that they quit and stopped and started and started and stopped. And yet 2 prophets showed up just when they needed them. And their hearts were encouraged again. And 3 times God changed the minds of Persian kings and governors. But you say, how can joy come out of hardship? Jesus says it happens all the time. Every time a woman is with child and suffers pain because her hour has come, as soon as that baby is born, she forgets about the pain because of the joy that a new life has been born into this world. Don't you see? It isn't just that joy follows the pain. The pain produces the joy. A joy you couldn't have had any other way. Look at the death of Christ, sorrowful as it was, and yet out of that death has come peace, forgiveness, life, and joy unending. Now, if you're going to look for joy in perishable things, your joy will always perish right along with it. If you think it's to be found in chemicals, artificiality, eroticism, geography, if you think some other thing, some other person, some other place is going to make you happy, you're in for a heck of a big disappointment. You keep on looking for the happiness, and you'll never find it. But if you forget it, if you accept the challenges, if you fight the good fight of faith, then you will find that God gives you the joy. See, what your hearts are really looking for is not happiness. They're looking for God. Life with God always tastes better, much fuller, far more interesting and adventuresome. We love God not because He gives us the joy. It's because we love God that He gives us the joy. Now, if you can accept the challenge, if you can come clean about your guilt, then you will hear His uplifting word, be of good cheer. Thy sins be forgiven thee. If you're not afraid of running the risk of launching out into deep waters at Christ's command, then you will hear the word coming to you over the deep and through the dark. Be of good cheer. I'm with you. Be not afraid. If you can carry Christ's cross, if you will share in His sufferings, then you will also hear His promising word. In this world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome this world. There are people today, unhappy souls, who will frankly tell you that they know what you're talking about. And such joy and serenity would be a wonderful thing to have, but they say, life is just dealt them a 4-card flush. And they always sit there with this losing hand. Well, that's because they want the joy of Christ without Christ. They just want the joy. They want to stand in the winner's circle without playing the game. Without the self-discipline and the sacrifice that every athlete must practice. It is the joy that a farmer knows. From what? Oh, from battling the elements. The heat and the burden of the day, the thorns and the thistles. And then he knows the joy of a harvest. Only a soldier would know that joy after the hard-fought battle is over and won. Joy comes from God and Christ and living for others. Joy comes to all of those who have renounced their self-centeredness and living every minute for somebody to make me happy. For such people, heaven itself would be intolerable. They'd be pounding on the doors demanding, let me out of here! This place bores me stiff! And they would be let out. And so, like these folks, As the years go by and on come the infirmities of age and the inevitable end, and the hour comes to lay down your walking stick and your baggage, our joy does not diminish. The reverse is true. We trust in a God who can bring triumph out of defeat, strength out of life out of death, for the simple reason He has done it many times in my life. It won't be the first time. And we can pray, Thou on my head in early youth did smile, though oft rebellious and perverse meanwhile. But Thou hast not left me. Oft as I lift Thee, on to the close, O Lord, abide with me. Amen.